Welcome to the Commsverse session, Why You Need to Back Up Office 365, especially Microsoft Teams. Today's session will be presented by Charlie Smith and Hendrick Hirsch.
Thank you, Jeremy. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to today's session. As presented, my name is Charlie Smith. I work in Barracuda's data protection team. I'm the consulting solutions engineer. So my role involves working right across EMEA on strategic projects of data protection, which covers both on-premise backup using our backup appliances and our cloud-to-cloud backup for Office 365. So what today's topic is all about is talking about, obviously you guys are very familiar with Microsoft Office 365 and Microsoft Teams, but it asks, I suppose, the big obvious elephant in the room, or the big question is your data protected in the Microsoft cloud? Today, I'm also joined by Hendrick Hirsch. Hendrick is a pre-sales engineer who works in our Innsbruck office in Austria, and he's going to be going through a live demo of our cloud-to-cloud backup for Office 365. So we're going to get underway now. We will have a question session at the end, so if you do have any questions, please take a note, and we will have a Q&A at the end of the presentation and demo. So there's been a lot of change in the last 6 months. You know, the adoption of Office 365 continues to grow massively. I think it's fair to say Office 365 is the de facto standard now for, you know, data processing, word processing, SharePoint, online exchange, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams is growing huge. But there's also a lot of change in the sort of threat space as well. There has been a huge increase in ransomware attacks. This study was conducted by Malwarebytes, and we've seen a 300% increase in the last year of ransomware attacks. So ransomware is not new, everybody knows about it, but the way that attacks are initiated are getting more and more sophisticated. So the end product, I suppose, with ransomware is your data gets encrypted, and it does affect Office 365. So if you have endpoints that get encrypted or attacked by a ransomware malware payload, the Microsoft Sync tool will synchronize, change files, for example, from your My Documents folder into your OneDrive account. Microsoft do have some tools to protect against that, but it is quite limited. And in some cases, it doesn't always give you the full protection that you need. So there's been a huge increase in ransomware. Over 1.5 million companies were attacked last year. And I don't think this is going to go away. I think what we're seeing now is the payload has kind of been the same for the last 18 months or so, but it's a sophistication in social engineering attacks where you may receive not just a random spear phishing or a phishing email. It's more very much targeted. So you might get an email from one of your colleagues, or you think it's from one of your colleagues, with a fake attachment, you know, a Word document or a PowerPoint or a spreadsheet, when actually, in fact, it's a malware package. You know, when you click on that, it launches an attack. I received one a few months ago, you know, where it was sent from one of our inside sales guys. And it says, "Hi, Charlie, you know, we're working on this solution proposal. Can you check the document for me?" And I just kind of had some weird kind of feeling about it that just didn't look right. And my hunch paid off. So when I discussed it with the IT department, they said it was indeed a phishing attack. And that's the point. They're getting very, very sophisticated. Microsoft adoption, as I've already mentioned, is continuing to grow rapidly. You know, in 2018, about 56% of all sizes of companies globally was using Office 365. Last year, that grew massively to nearly 80%. In fact, for organizations over 1,000 users, it was about 82% adoption of Office 365. So I genuinely believe by the end of this year, we're going to be well into the sort of early 90s, 90% plus range of adoption for Office 365. And when you think about it, it makes a lot of sense. Office 365 is very, very flexible. You can work from home, you can work from the office. Anything you're working on, your documents are accessible on your laptop. They're synchronized to OneDrive. You can access your SharePoint, your email. Microsoft Teams, etc. So it's no surprise that Microsoft 365 has been so heavily adopted because it's so easy to use, and every organization across the world understands how to use Microsoft Office tools. So it's kind of just growing. And what we've certainly seen in the UK is a bigger adoption in the public sector now using Office 365. Since the lockdown occurred in the UK in mid-March of this year, there was a 40% increase in Microsoft Teams use. And again, that's no surprise, because if you're already using Office 365, many companies were already entitled to use Microsoft Teams. But because of the need for mental health and the need to be part of a team, it kind of makes sense that you want to speak to your colleagues, you want to have video conferencing, chat, live group conversations, working on joint projects. So there was a 40% increase in a single week after lockdown started and people were having to work from home. But it does raise a question that, as more and more people are working from home and, mixing between the office and the home environments, it does present challenges around data protection, because there's more data held on remote devices. A lot of people just assume that their data in the Microsoft cloud is fully protected and they don't need to do anything. And we're starting to see a real trend that in Office 365, there's been a huge adoption with customers looking for third-party solutions to protect their data. I think when you think about GDPR and compliance, there's a lot of sort of spaces that need to be investigated around what Microsoft provide versus what a company needs in terms of data protection and retention policies around your data. So what we're seeing is 1 in 4 businesses don't believe they need to back up Microsoft 365. We actually did a survey on World Backup Day in February this year, and 40% of our own customer base, we sent a survey out to about 3,000 customers. And these customers were just a generic Barracuda customer base. Some of them are using our firewall software, some of them are using our public cloud solutions, some are using email protection, and about 30% of our own customer base were using our cloud-to-cloud backup. There was a number of other competitors listed, but 40% of our own customer base just assumed that Microsoft provided all the protection they need. This survey was actually carried out by the Enterprise Strategy Group, ESG, where they said 1 in 4 businesses don't believe they need to protect or provide any additional protection other than what Microsoft provide in the Office 365 cloud. Now, one thing that's really interesting is if you read your Microsoft terms and Microsoft's service level agreement that you sign up to when you sign up for Office 365, there is a paragraph in the MSA agreement, section 6Bs, that talks about protection of your data, and it kind of basically goes along the lines of is that Microsoft strive to keep the Office 365 infrastructure up and running, but in the event of an outage, you may not be able to retrieve your content or data that you've stored. So essentially what Microsoft is saying is that we will do our utmost best to make sure your environment is always available, and even if there is an outage, we will always try and make sure that your data is there when it comes back online. But they cannot guarantee that. It's a bit like having a car park in a pub that says, if somebody breaks into your car, we are not liable for breaking and entry of your vehicle, and it's a bit the same with Microsoft here. They're saying, look, we cannot guarantee it, and they strongly recommend that you use a third-party solution or application or service to protect your data. So that is actually spelled out in the Microsoft terms and conditions. So we don't make this stuff up. This is straight from Microsoft. And also Gartner this year also stated that Office 365 does not offer a comprehensive backup and restore service, and Gartner clients report data loss from end user errors, malicious attacks, and applications errors as well. So, Gartner are one of the biggest enterprise analysts, IT analysts on the planet, and generally they're well thought of, and customers really listen to what Gartner have to say. So the other confusing part about data protection is data governance, because obviously if you're a Office 365 E3 or E5 subscribed customer, you get email archiving or data governance included in that package. And there is a little bit of confusion around that, because some customers just assume that because they have data governance, i.e. the ability to retain emails for very long periods of time, if you're an on E3 or E5 or paid extra for the archiving module, you can keep emails for up to 10 years or longer, and set policies around that. But don't be confused. Data governance is all about there to protect you against litigation, and it's about having good compliancy, that if your company was ever legally challenged and you had to go into a court of law, email archiving is about producing email evidence, proving that the data hasn't been tampered with, it's been secured and stored in a safe repository, that it can't be tampered with or manipulated. And archiving is about trying to find that needle in a haystack. So you're trying to search data on very keywords and bring back specific emails relating to individuals between certain time ranges, containing certain keywords relating to a topic that you may have to produce. So it's there for compliance, e-discovery purposes. Archiving is not a backup. Archiving gives you the ability to search and retrieve specific emails, but what a backup provides is the ability to do what we call a point-in-time restore. So for example, if you lost your whole mailbox and you wanted to restore everything to what it looked like at 8 o'clock last night, I can restore your mailbox on all its subfolders, your contacts, your calendar items, and bring it back to exactly what it looked like the night before. You would have a real challenge on your hands to try and do that with archiving on its own. You would have to understand what emails were there at that point in time. The danger is you could restore thousands of emails and data that was maybe deleted a year ago because you don't know what was there at that point in time. The other challenge with email archiving is it only protects Exchange. So if you've got data in SharePoint, OneDrive, Microsoft Teams, it doesn't allow you to protect those and bring those back. Okay. Now, Microsoft do have retention policies. I'm going to talk about that around site collection bins. So they do provide a base level of protection that you can bring back deleted items. And I'll explain that in a little bit of time. But what I want to do now is quickly talk about the Barracuda cloud-to-cloud solution. We provide a SaaS-based solution. So the great thing about our product is there's nothing to set up. You sign up to Barracuda, we license on the number of active users using the system. So if you have shared mailboxes or shared user accounts, they're excluded from the cost calculation. And we also provide unlimited storage and unlimited retention in our Barracuda cloud. So we log in, and Hendrick is going to go through a demo to show you how we do this using a global admin account, which gives us permissions to access your Office 365 tenancy. We discover all your Exchange, OneDrive, SharePoint, Microsoft Groups, and Microsoft Teams data, and we can then set up retention policy, backup schedules, and run the backups. Okay, and the great thing is there's no infrastructure for you as a consumer to worry about. You just log in to the console and you can initiate restores on demand. And I'm not going to steal Hendrick's thunder. He's going to go through this in a lot of detail and explain how it works. But the whole value proposition is that we take the worry out of protecting your data. In whatever scenario happens, you can be rest assured that your data is safe and protected and backed up. So just coming back to what I was talking about, data retention within the Microsoft solution, Microsoft have what we call site collection bins or recycle bins. It's very similar to the recycle bin on your desktop. When you delete a document from SharePoint, or you delete a document from your OneDrive account, or delete an email, it goes into a recycle bin. And you can set different policies around retention on that. So for example, with Exchange, if you do a hard delete of an item where you've deleted it out of the recycle bin, it's only held for a maximum of 30 days. A soft delete, it keeps it indefinitely. So if you delete something from your Outlook, it goes into a site collection bin and it will sit there indefinitely until someone empties a recycle bin. With SharePoint and OneDrive, the default can vary with anything from 15 days to 30 days. But if you're a global admin, you can log in, use PowerShell scripts to extend that site collection bin policy for up to 93 days, which essentially is 3 calendar months. Microsoft Teams doesn't have a site collection bin, but all the documents in Teams are stored in your SharePoint Teams collection sites. So those retention policies are dictated by your SharePoint policy. So if you've extended your SharePoint Teams collection sites to up to 93 days, it means the content held in Microsoft Teams can be protected for 93 days. But if you actually delete a Teams channel, the default policy is that will be kept for 21 days, where you can actually go into the Teams as an administrator and restore Teams channels for up to 3 weeks after it's deleted. Now, when you compare all that to the Barracuda retention policy, we provide unlimited retention. Another big value add for us is that, you know, not only do we keep your data for an unlimited amount of time, we keep the data even after a user has left the company. So you may have a situation where, you know, one of your employees leaves the company, your Office 365 admin deletes that user account from the Office 365 tenancy, and almost immediately that data is gone forever, because Microsoft assume that because you've deleted that user account, you no longer need the data. So the challenge a lot of the times is that sometimes you're, you know, an ex-employee leaves the company, the account is deleted, the mailbox is gone, and then a few weeks later, a new employee comes in and he says, "Okay, I'm wanting to do some work on this project," and one of the ex-person's colleagues says, "Oh, John was working on that. You know, he had a load of documents where he'd be doing that." And what you can do is, you know, if you went into Office 365, you couldn't restore anybody's documents or OneDrive or SharePoint data if the user account's been deleted. But with us, we retain all historical backups, you know, in our cloud. So we can then restore an ex-employee's data to a different path. So we can restore it to a different user or an admin user, and get all their data back as required as well. So it's not just about, you know, comparing our retention policy to Microsoft's. It's also about being able to access, you know, people who no longer are part of the organization's data as well. The other challenge you've got to think about as well is, from a GDPR compliance perspective, the data in the Microsoft cloud is your data. It's not Microsoft's data. Microsoft are kind of acting like custodians. You know, they're hosting your data in the Office 365 cloud, but ultimately the responsibility to protect and be able to restore and retrieve that data is your responsibility, and it's not Microsoft's. So you've got to ask yourself, is up to 93 days retention policy adequate for your organization? Because if you compared that, for example, to an on-premise backup policy, you know, and you were backing up a file server or a SharePoint server or Exchange, you probably have, you know, Exchange email backups going back up to 7 years. You may have file server backups going back to 18 months. You may have SharePoint backups going back 2 or 3 years. So when you compare that to what you did in the past versus the retention policy today, it's in many cases significantly shorter. And that's really the million-dollar question: is the level of protection that Microsoft provide good enough? And is the retention policy that Microsoft are able to keep and protect your data long enough? They're the two questions you really have to understand and figure out for yourself, I suppose. Just to give you an economy of scale, we have nearly 15,000 customers using our cloud-to-cloud backup for Office 365. We're running about 2.5 million backup jobs every month. We store about 25 petabytes of Office 365 data in our cloud, and we carry out about 8,500 restore jobs per month. So, you know, the last line's quite important, because, you know, some people just assume, oh, we back it up, it's an insurance policy, we hope we never have to use it. But it's amazing how many of our customers have to initiate restores for various reasons. We had one of our a new customer in Holland recently that, you know, they were doing a project where they were synchronizing OneDrive data into SharePoint, They deleted a load of data by mistake. And the IT manager was delighted because within 2 hours they were able to restore, I think it was about something like 50 gigabytes worth of data back, and have it all back restored to the original location. So they were delighted. And he said that if they were just relying on Microsoft tools to do that, it would have been quite painful and quite a slow process to get that data back. So who's our typical customers? Well, we typically sell to all sizes of organizations, from very large. We have customers with 14, 15,000 mailboxes, all the way down to small businesses with maybe a few hundred mailboxes using our cloud-to-cloud backup. But one thing that's very common across all our customers is that increasingly IT specialists who work in the IT departments tend to be really busy guys. They're very clever. You know, they're doing everything from infrastructure and virtualization deployment of VMs. They're, you know, managing security, they're managing data protection, they're doing desktop management, deploying patches, etc. They're, you know, they're configuring firewalls and networking. So these guys are working on projects constantly. And one common scenario that we see all the time as well is that IT departments never ever seem to get a huge increase in headcount or budget. So often their challenge is that they have to manage more with the same amount of people. So if you said to a busy IT guy, right, you're going to have to build brand new virtual servers, you're going to have to add storage, you're going to have to buy backup software, you're going to have to configure it all. You're going to have to, if you want cloud backups, you're going to have to sign up with Microsoft Azure. You're going to have to build a virtual infrastructure with storage, install your backup software on there, configure your backups, synchronize that with your on-premise backups. It's a huge project. And not only that, there's a huge amount of hidden costs involved as well. So with Barracuda, it's a SaaS-based solution. So what you see is what you get. There's no hidden costs. You get full functionality in the product. There's no complex or tiered licensing that disables certain features unless you license a top-level license. We just have one license. It's licensed per active user. And as I said before, that covers shared mailboxes, archive mailboxes, etc., included in there. It's very easy to restore. I'm going to hand over to Hendrick soon, and he's going to talk you through how easy it is to navigate around the product and do various tasks. Just on a commercial point, cloud-to-cloud backup is available as a standalone solution. It can be purchased through Barracuda, through one of our partners. Computer World is one of our partners that are sponsoring us to present at this event with you good people today, and they can provide a lot of consultancy and expertise around the project, not just providing the software, the solution. We also are available on the Azure Marketplace as well. So if you prefer to license through a Microsoft partner, we can license our solution through the Azure Marketplace as well. So I just want to reiterate, it's really an easy solution to use and set up. There's no software to install or configure. It's literally just logging in, creating your policies and initiating the backups. And it's as quick as that. So we believe, you know, most customers have it set up within 15 minutes or so. Really straightforward. You get unlimited storage and retention. So there's no pressure on you to reduce retention policies because you're licensed by how much capacity you're holding in a cloud. You can keep backups forever if you want. And even all the historical backups from ex-employees can be held and kept indefinitely as well. So there's no worries about looting data because, as I say, we retain the data for as long as you need it. Most customers do end up having retention policies to fit around their compliance. You know, but the good thing is our default retention policy is unlimited forever, and you'll see this when Hendrick does a demo. So in summary, Microsoft do actually recommend that you back up your Office 365 data and content. Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup, we believe, is the best solution. It provides a very easy to use solution. It's very intuitive. We provide unlimited storage and retention. We hold a separate copy of your backups in an independent location. We provide very ease of use in terms of restoring the data down from anything from site level to document level. everything from mailbox level down to individual emails and attachments. And the same with OneDrive, we can restore at parent folder level or drill down and recover to a very granular level. And as I say, the setup is very, very easy to carry out. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pass across to Hendrick, and he's going to walk you through a live demo to show you the solution in action. So over to you, Hendrick.
Thank you very much, Charlie, for that quite good impression we got here from our product. Let me just share my screen so you can all see what I'm seeing actually. So here we go. Easy to use, easy to manage. That's something we really want to achieve with our products. And for that purpose, we created a thing called Cloud Control. The Barracuda Cloud Control contains all the Barracuda products you might have in place. Besides cloud-to-cloud backup, we also offer a lot of other things which can help you protect your cloud, protect your emails, protect your environment, and protect your users. With the cloud-to-cloud backup itself, we for sure protect your Office 365, but there's probably also some other things you want to have, like say, like an archiving solution or email security things. You can all manage them within our one portal. So you go to barracudanetworks.com, log into, and you can manage all your things you need to in your IT department. This is especially good for small or medium businesses with a small IT department, where, as Charlie said, you have a lot of specialists in there, sitting in there, which has a lot to do, a lot of different things to do, and therefore it is quite valuable for them to have solutions which are quite easy to understand and easy to use, and have it in one place. Especially if you think about remote working nowadays, it is a huge improvement that you don't need to log in on your all appliances a different way and so on. You can just go to one centralized page and you can configure everything of them. Looking a little bit more into our cloud-to-cloud backup, we will see we have this status page here around where you can easily see that is something. What is happening? Is there a backup added, or is probably something not really done properly? Also, we can already see that we have configured all our 4 supported sources. So OneDrive for Business, Exchange Online, SharePoint Online, and Groups. Whereas Groups, as the big umbrella on a lot of Microsoft applications, also contains the Teams configuration and the Teams application we protect. Charlie mentioned that it's really easy to set up and really fast to set up our backup for Office 365. So what we're actually I will just start this timer here now, and I'm going through it, and then we will see how long we would actually have taken for it. So the first thing you would actually do is add a cloud provider. In our cloud provider list at the moment, we have Microsoft 365. In the future, we will add a lot of other things in there. Just a few examples would be Salesforce, or also we want to integrate with Google G Suite and so on. And a nice thing about this is also the licensing itself. You license for the number of users you have, regardless if there are in the cloud provider type Microsoft or in a future cloud provider we add. So all the updates we do in our cloud and all the new stuff we add, you don't have to pay separately for it. Also, for example, if you go into the sources we now have, so Groups, SharePoint, OneDrive, and Exchange, if we at some time add, for example, Jammer, or let's say something else from Microsoft, you would not be purchased. You wouldn't have to purchase it separately. You would just pay the same amount you had before. So let's see. We already have now our cloud provider enabled, which is Office 365, and now we go to add a data source. I will just go with the groups now. for sure can do all of them. It's just to show you how easy it is. As a SaaS-based solution, as a cloud-to-cloud backup, we actually directly connect to Microsoft itself. So you see, we already are on microsoftonline.com, and now we use a global admin account to actually connect to Microsoft itself. What we will do here is we have Barracuda Networks as an app, and we grant permissions to this app. As it's a backup and restore solution, there are for sure a lot of permissions you need to give us. I mean, a read and write access to user files. For sure, we will need that for a backup and restore thing. However, as soon as you have done that, you're basically connected. I will cancel that now. The reason for that is we already have it configured, so configure it twice would probably lead to some quite nasty things. However, we will just go back now and see the backup sources again. And I will go into the source itself. So let's say into the groups itself. And let's see what's actually in here. You can just change the name for it, enable or disable backups, and you can also reauthorize it. That would make sense if, for example, something changes in your environment and you just want to reauthorize it, or you need to use just another admin account for compliance reasons, for example. Well, for now, we have connected our cloud-to-cloud backup with Microsoft. So there's, as Charlie said, no setup of any agent, no setup of any physical or virtual appliances, hardware or software, nothing else to do. You don't need an Azure blob where you deploy something. You really just need to give the application Barracuda cloud-to-cloud backup the permissions in Microsoft 365 itself. The next step to set up the backup would actually be to add a schedule for it. Now we have connected, and the next step would be to let our system know when you want to have the backup running. And this is also kept as easy as possible, as intuitive as possible. You give the scheduler name. This is quite important that you give it a sounding name and nothing else like just backup or something. Actually, in the reports, I will show you later, you will be referred to the schedule names here. So in case you need to either look something up, what was backed up, or troubleshoot or something, then you would go to reports and it is always referred to the schedule name. So this is probably a quite important thing to keep in mind, that you just name the schedule quite soundly here. Well, let's customize it a little bit. And as soon as we connect it, we can drill down to all of them. We really need them. We want to actually pick up. I'll just open Exchange and OneDrive for this purposes. So what you can do here in Exchange Online is actually using a so-called email-enabled security group on Microsoft side, and just put in there all the users you want to have backed up in Exchange Online. This makes especially sense for companies like schools or universities, everything which has a distinguishing between two big or multiple big user groups, like students and teachers. For example, you probably want to protect your teachers on a day-by-day basis, and you want only to protect your students by a week-by-week basis, for example. Or you probably only want to protect the staff members and not protect some other members. You can also go ahead and just select OneDrive users, which you probably want to have protected, and you can also use a security enabled groups here. It's a little bit different for SharePoint and for groups. For groups at this moment, we just grab everything. So groups, also including the teams, will always protect all of them. And for the SharePoint sites itself, you can go into the SharePoint sites, because SharePoint sites are not really tied to any users. I mean, you can have a site user and so on. However, the SharePoint online site view is more a hierarchical structure of sites you would have. So therefore, you cannot really work with security groups here. Once you've decided that you want to backup or what you want to backup, you can decide when you want to backup. What we actually recommend is doing a backup every day, but you can also go ahead and do it only on the weekdays, for example, or every day except Wednesday, just as you want. The next step and the last step for the scheduling actually is to go for start time. So we actually recommend a best performance time because we already know or have a lot of customers which are connected to Microsoft, and we know when would be the best time to run a specific schedule. Quite nice thing here to explain is that Microsoft has a quite really cool feature which is protecting your environment itself, your productive environment. As soon as something appears which would slow down your environment, Microsoft will throttle down the specific item which is taking too much resources. In our case, that means that we as a third-party application would be throttled down in case anything would appear on your productive system. In a classical way of setting up scheduling for backup, you had always to take care about when will your backup be running? When is the best time to run it? With this solution and the cool Microsoft feature of it, you don't have to take care about it. You actually only have to take care that you just save the schedule at all. Because in case it would be a quite resource intense problem, then Microsoft itself will throttle us down. The backup will take longer for sure, but your productive environment will never be targeted for any resource issues in this case. So for sure you can go ahead and start it at night, but I would absolutely recommend to go with our recommended time, because we actually know when the best thing or when the best time is not to get throttled and not to get into the position where the performance would slow down your environment. Well, in this case, just we would hit save and we got it. And going back to our timeline here, so it actually took me 10 minutes to set that up with you and explaining what we did. So you have set up a cloud-to-cloud backup solution for your Exchange Online, OneDrive for Business, your SharePoint Online, and your groups and teams features within 10 minutes, including explaining things. Well, we actually have some more things you can configure, but these are not mandatory to have a backup running. Retention policies, for example, these are mandatory for compliance reasons. As Charlie said, we keep your data as long as you want. So from a default configuration, we always keep them forever. Well, forever actually means forever. So what you can do is you can go into it and say, I don't want to keep it forever. I just want to keep it for some days or for some years and so on. But all in all, you can keep them with your subscription as long as you want. And on the right-hand side, if you look in there, you will actually see which point in time restores you can actually make with the retention policies you set up. So with this retention policy, for example, you can go down daily revisions, for example, for the 25th of June, and also apply these retention policies to the specific source itself. What I'm always telling, and I'm always love to tell people, is that you don't buy a backup solution, more or less. You buy a restore solution, because it does not really make sense to have backups running but you cannot do anything with them. I'll just go quickly into it and show you that we can do a lot with all these data we have. So what we got here is that we went the same way as you probably see with any other browser or any other explorer. You just drill into your data and get it back for some at some point. We can go for restoring the thing to original locations or other locations, whereas other locations would be another OneDrive user in this case. You can also go ahead and just download the file, which makes it an access strategy for Office 365, in fact. So you can download all the data you have, just click in there and download selected items and get all the data out of it, and you have it independently from Microsoft and independently from Barracuda. So this is the exit strategy you can put in place for compliance reasons for sure. And you can drill into every single item. Also for Exchange Online, you can drill into the single parts and even download the single email as an EML file and process it with any Outlook or Thunderbird or whatever you have. Yeah, I mean, that's basically it for the whole system. There are some other nice features you can do. You can set simple users. So you have some users which can restore, some users which cannot restore, some users which can only change configuration. You can set email notifications. And another important thing are the reports, where we have audit logs and the reports for backup and restore. So we can see for any single item we did the restore and the backup. So you are completely free to also show these reports to your manager or to an auditor in case something would be needed in this case. Yeah, as said, this is basically it for the whole product. I mean, we have set it up quite fast, and I just talked about roughly 20 minutes, and you have a completely overview of this really easy to use solution, and for a solution which is really powerful, even that is so easy to understand and manage and use. I will hand over to Charlie again because he has some slides left he wanted to show you. So thanks a lot for your patience and have a good day. Charlie, I think you're actually muted.
Sorry, thank you, Hendrick. I just need to get my screen back. Let me just have a look. Okay, so I'm just going to share my screen share. Hold on. Oh, here we go. Okay, so hopefully you can see the screen now. Our partner Computer World are having a competition. Computer World have a lot of expertise in Barracuda solutions, and they can provide consultancy and advice around Office 365 deployments, configurations, also security and data protection solutions for your Microsoft Teams and Office 365. So they're going to be announcing a winner at 5 p.m. Today. So if you can quickly register, you have the opportunity to win a Lego Technic Land Rover set, which is quite a nice prize. And if you're a bit of a geek like me and Hendrick, you would probably have many hours building that and having fun. So that competition is ongoing now, and there is a link at the bottom of the slide you can see to register your details. But I suppose a little trade-off is you have to speak to Computer World and book a session with them so they can go through you know, a strategy planning session with you guys. Now, just moving into the question and answer, because we're coming up to our 45-minute time limit now. If there's any questions that you want to ask, please use the Q&A, and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. I've already answered one question about where data residency is around the, so I've listed our data centers. We are in a bit of a transformation phase. We are going to be launching a brand new version of our cloud-to-cloud backup in about September this year. So it's only a couple of months away. And as part of that new launch or new release of cloud-to-cloud backup, we're going to be migrating our cloud-to-cloud backup to run natively in Azure. And that's quite an exciting thing, because as a company, it allows us to grow much faster into different regions around the world, areas where we may not currently have a data center. I think it's becoming more and more apparent now that localization or globalization of your data being held in certain regions around the world is becoming more and more important for customers, and it allows us to grow and expand and have that huge flexibility that the Microsoft Cloud. One question that does come up quite a lot is, isn't that a risk, if you're backing up Office 365 and holding your data into Azure? And the answer is absolutely not. We're going to be using Microsoft Zone Redundant Storage, which has our data split across free availability zones, and I believe offers 12 nines of availability, so 99.12 nines, which equates to something like 47 seconds downtime a year. So it's really an improvement around our SLAs as well. So we're really excited about that. But it won't affect any customer now or going forward. We have migration services all configured, ready to rock and roll. And customers' data will be migrated across seamlessly when we go to the new release. So I just want to open that up for questions. I just wanted to mention that because we are very close to that happening, I suppose, and it's worth pointing that out. So do we have any questions? Okay. Well, if we don't have any questions today, what I was going to say is that we will be attending the technical forum that kind of accompanies this webinar. So we will stay online. So if you do want to ask any questions offline, we will hang around and be available on that technical group. So we'll be there to answer any questions. So thank you for your time today. I hope you've enjoyed the session and found it informative. And look forward to speaking to you soon. Thank you.